It's Steelers 365 here on Trib Live Radio, along with Guy Junker. I'm Ken Laird. All brought to you by Eastern H2O in the Fox Chapel Plaza, the home of the Reactor watches, the best-built performance sports watch period. Also, place to go, Guy, if you get your skis and snowboards, want to get them all oiled up, slicked up, ready to go for the slopes. The mountains are indeed open.
I guess they're doing a much brisker business than they were in December.
No doubt about it. And it's time for the draft business in the NFL these next couple of months leading up to the late April NFL draft in New York City.
So go skiing and study your draft notes while you're sitting around the fireplace.
Exactly. The Combine's coming up later in the month. Now we're in the month of February. I'll be heading out there with Allen Robinson, Scott Brown, a couple other the Trib guys. I want to focus on the position of tight ends today, Guy, in terms of the Steelers and their draft needs. Heath Miller, of course, is going to be out for much of the offseason here, and he'll be coming back in his 30s in terms of age bracket. Where would you place in general the tight end in terms of area of team need for the Steelers beyond Heath and even considering Heath's injury?
Well, I think considering Heath's injury, it changes a little bit, Ken. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had it anywhere near the top of my list. Knowing Heath Miller, he'll do everything he can to come back better and stronger than he was before. I don't think that's an issue. Probably won't be available at the beginning of the year, but you're going to take a draft pick based on a guy being hurt for a month or a week or whatever it is. I think they have bigger and more pressing issues than to take a tight end in the first round. I mean, I think you can build depth at any position throughout the draft, but I don't think I'd take one in the first round.
How about the second or late in the first? I think that's kind of where the top two prospects this year, Zach Ertz of Stanford and Tyler Eifert of Notre Dame, are probably graded out to be worth value-wise, and that's typically where you see them have gone in the last 10 years. There have been quite a few first-round pick tight ends, Heath Miller one of them, but more often it's 28, 30, 32, early second round. Kobe Fleener was the first guy to go last year to Indianapolis, and I think he was the 34th overall pick.
Zach Ertz compared a lot to Kobe Fleener, a little smaller and a little slower, but I think the tight end is becoming such a weapon in the NFL today, Ken, that you might see some of that thinking change, and it could be more of a sexy pick more often, but you got to have the guys available there. I think in the terms of Ertz, Stanford uses a pro-style offense, and I think that they've produced some tight ends in the past. They'd be well prepared to step right in. I don't know that he's got he's not Rob Gronkowski. He's probably not even Heath Miller. The guys like Michael Williams, who is out there, who's he's basically the same size, but is 20 pounds heavier. Same height, but 20 pounds heavier, and he's an all-blocking guy. I mean, he can catch a pass here or there, not much downfield, more the old-fashioned kind of the tight end. So I think it depends on your offense and what you want to do, but I think as we've seen, the receiving tight ends have become more valuable in the NFL than the blocking kind.
These bulked up like former receivers who they put out and create mismatches with, and I don't know what Todd Haley ultimately would prefer. I mean, if he had a real good receiving prospect, a good running back, and a tight end who might be profile as a Heath Miller type, what would be his druthers in his offense? I'm sure Roethlisberger would love a couple of bookend tight ends that could catch and also flex in and run block a little bit too. They've got formulating a nice big offensive line, a young O-line, and you get a dual threat in there with Heath Miller. They could use it. Let's put it that way.
Well, what if a guy like Eifert is available in the second round, and you start thinking along, hey, even if we have Heath Miller, we can use two of these guys. Look, they need weapons. Offensively, they need weapons. Running back, receiver, until we really find out who's staying and who's going, and we kind of have an idea of who it's going to be. This is a draft that is very heavy and defensive players, especially near the top. This isn't a great year to be going after too many skill position kind of guys. The best offensive guys in this draft are probably up front along the line. I don't think they should go high after another offensive lineman. Is their offensive line perfect? No. But when you have Pouncey, when you have Adams, when you have DeCastro, you've spent some high picks. Let's let these guys play a year together. They've all had some injury issues. Let's see if they can play healthy and what they do. I'm thinking, at least in first round, Ken, there's some pretty good, I think Steeler issues are rush, and I mean that on both sides of the ball. They don't run the ball as much as they want to. Their pass rush has not been what it has been. Will Casey Hampton be back? Brett Kiesel got hurt at the end of the year. Both are old at best. Still can produce some, but I think a quick defensive end or a pass rush linebacker is probably, there are a lot of those available, and that's how I think they would lean in the first round.
Or maybe trade back, get an extra pick. If all the top pass rushers are gone and you don't feel running backs worth picking at 17 or tight end, but now you're back in the late first round, early second. You might have an extra third. You can fill a couple of more needs and maybe not reach for somebody at that spot. And I agree. I think a lot of even the quarterbacks are going to drop, and you may see defensive first. And some of the quarterbacks, and you might have a lot of good skill position players offensively late in the first round available.
The one offensive skill position player I've seen in a couple mock drafts is Keenan Allen, the wide receiver from Cal, as someone the Steelers might be interested in. We still aren't exactly sure if Mike Wallace is coming back. Is Rashard Mendenhall coming back? Speaking of Keenan's, is Keenan Lewis coming back? Most people seem to disagree with me, but this secondary worries me, Ken. I mean, they got through the year with guys that were hurt and such, but I mean, Ike Taylor's not young. Troy Polamalu's not young. Ryan Clark's not young. I'm not ready to put them out to pasture now, but you got to build some depth for the future, and they were so injury-riddled there last year. I'm not talking necessarily first round, but I think if you're looking by position and where interest should be, I think the secondary has to be paid some attention to.
Guy Junker, Ken Laird, all brought to you by Eastern H2O. It's Steelers 365, our draft capsules every week leading up to the NFL Draft.
It's time for the draft.